So, the backstory to the interviews we're about to hear is Paula was invited to staff an interactive booth on behalf of the Faculty of Arts at a research showcase that was sponsored by the Office of Research Services. So it was this whole day. It was March 19th. And then I got kind of involved as well. And so basically it was this day where there were 7-minute presentations. We had our fabulous colleague in sociology department, Fabricio Tilo, as one of the presenters. There's a whole series of these short, quick presentations. And then there were these interactive booths around the outside where it was a KPU-wide, right? So it was like people from all over, all the different faculties and departments and whatnot, all getting together to talk about sustainability for the day. And we were there kind of repping the Faculty of Arts, and we thought, well, let's turn this into an opportunity to talk to people about sustainability. So we got some equipment from the library and just stuck a microphone in front of people's faces. Paula had done a fabulous job getting in like a whole tray of like little baby plants. And so we had like this fabulous display with all these little plants, right? And so that just brought people in. It's like, oh, plants, like, hey. And so we were then like, what does sustainability mean to you? And we ended up talking to staff, students, and at least one person in the leadership office as well.
Yes,
I mean, leadership broadly conceived. So
yeah.
David Burns. Yeah. Okay.
There's none other.
Yeah.
Might I note in case he's listening.
Well, we're going to send an email to all the people who we interviewed to let them know that this podcast is being released. So he better be listening.
Yeah. All right. With that, 15-minute intro. I think we're out of time.
It was thorough. It was good.
It was good, yes. Okay.
So what do we want to do? Do we want to should we just roll the tape?
Yes. So, and then you can pause it and we'll make, thoughtful / humorous interventions. So what's the word? Interjections.
Yeah.
Interjections. Okay. So our mics
could be an intervention.
So our mics are still going to be alive.
I'll intervene.
Yes.
You interject.
Why is everybody
and then
here?
you
I'll
intervene.
Yeah, and then we'll be fine.
Yes. All right. So
okay,
go ahead. Roll tape.
Roll.
All right. This is it.
Okay, so I'm here with Emma. You want to just tell us what's your affiliation with KPU? You're a student here, is that right?
Yes, I am a student in the horticulture department doing the urban ecosystems degree. For me, sustainability is all about ensuring that future generations of people and non-people, plants, animals, are able to get what they need.
That's wonderful. I really like how you included plants and animals in that, not just people as well. And so do you want to expand just a tiny bit more? When you say get what they need, what kinds of things are you thinking about there?
Yes, I'm thinking about for people, obviously, we need food, we need things for shelter. There's also a huge social and cultural aspect, mental health. For me, I'm really passionate about ensuring everyone has access to the outdoors and to these ecosystems that benefit us so much. And for non-people, it would be ensuring that they have access to spaces undisturbed by people. So, yeah.
That's great. I really love how you bring up the relationship between like the human and the non-human, and how the humans really need to be in relationship with the non-humans, but also those non-humans also need their own space, kind of like free of encroachment. Is that kind of what you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just important to recognize that it's incredibly important that we have a relationship with our natural environment, but it's also super important for us to recognize the impact we're having on it in a negative way. I think that it's obviously talked about a lot, but in day-to-day life, as we interact with nature, it's easy to forget that.
Great. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
I'm thinking of that Rolling Stone song, right? Can't always get what you want. If you try sometimes, get what you need. Right? Is that intelligent enough commentary?
Yeah. I think that's good. That's done.
No, seriously, I thought that was a good response from Emma. So that's an interesting notion of sustainability based on need, right?
Mm-hmm.
Presumably in contrast to just an endless wants, like desires and needs for not just humans, but plants, animals. So thinking kind of ecologically, more broadly.
I really liked, just like how it's the attention that she gave to like the more than human, right? And so it's like,
she pointed to different needs, right? And one human need was mental health, like the kind of, I guess, psychological or perhaps kind of innate need for a connection to nature is one way to think about it, and the benefits of that. And then for plants and animals, they need space undisturbed by humans.
Yeah.
Which in one sense is very true.
True, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, okay.
Should we I am gonna press play on my laptop again.
Go for it. Nice.
Okay, so I am here with Tamarin. Tamarin, do you want to just say what your affiliation is with KPU?
I am a biology student, a fourth-year biology student here at KPU, and I've just been hired on as a student research assistant at the Applied Genomics Center.
That's awesome. Congratulations. And congratulations also, I believe you were one of the winners of the poster competition.
Yes, I was.
Congratulations. So, what does sustainability mean to you in 60 seconds?
Quite a loaded question there. I would say for me, it's accessibility to enough food and enough resources for everybody globally. It's not just the few that can afford to access it.
Wow, that's really concise and really profound, because you add into it at the very end there, this not just those who can afford it. So does that mean that there is like an element of social justice to sustainability?
Yeah, I would say so for sure, because it's something that affects everybody, but it only seems like certain people can access enough food or access enough, afford to buy a home or something. So it's definitely a global issue that everyone should be concerned with.
That's great. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you would want to add on to that?
No, I'm good. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you for participating.
All right. I just hit pause there. It just occurred to me that I think it's the very first sustainable development goal of the United Nations is to end poverty.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
right.
Yeah.
So, she's picking up on that, making that direct connection.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yep.
Greg,
so the connection to social justice.
I think, like Emma just put it, wasn't Emma, was it? Tamarin. Sorry, Tamarin put it so eloquently. We don't need to intervene. Should we just keep rolling?
Yeah.
Rolling tape? All right. Let's hear
rolling.
number 3.
Okay, so here we are, and I am standing next to
Felicia Fagbamiye.
Okay. I've interacted with you over email. I've never met you face to face. But okay. So you are with the Office of Research Services, and you work with Dr. Tara Lyon. And okay. Research ethics. Okay, fabulous. Wonderful to meet you. And the question we're asking today is, what does sustainability mean to you?
To me, sustainability starts with reusing. Let's stop buying new clothes, because even in the context of social justice, a lot of factories, they use underage labor, and even the fabrics are not even as good as the older ones. So let's try and make the best efforts to reuse what we have, pass down, pass me up, clothes, shoes. Think of reusing before you buy new. Everything. Reuse the plastics before you recycle them. Put grains in them. It's safe. I do that all the time.
Thank you so much. And I think that's a really wonderful kind of like insight into how sustainability can be practiced in a really kind of concrete way, right? Because, just consuming less, reusing more, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So Felicia talking about the reuse part. Yeah. And also touching on the social justice again when she talked about child labor in factories. Any thoughts?
It way back when recycling became a thing and it first was being, promoted. I remember some ad campaigns that included the word refuse. And it was there was a series, like there was a whole kind of alliterative string of words beginning with R about how to recycle, right? It was and reuse was one of them. Recycle was one of them. And there was also refuse. And the idea was just like refuse to buy new. Like it was like refuse to participate in rampant consumption. And then that got kind of dropped.
Yeah, well, I remember reduce, reuse, recycle.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's right. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Reuse is even better.
And there was another one. That was right. There was one that had the fourth, which was like refuse, and it was like.
And it was a hierarchy as well, right? Like the best thing to do was, I guess the best would be refuse, right?
Yeah.
But then reduce, then reuse, then recycle, right? But now, like you say, it's just recycle.
Yeah.
Because, we got to keep consuming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah. And a lot of recycling, well, I mean, there's the whole issue around plastics. They just signed they're working on the plastics treaty. Plastics recycling is basically a sham. I mean, there's some you can do, but really that's just something we need to drastically reduce. But anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. It's staggering, eh? Like how fast plastics have just like become such a part of so many things in our everyday life. And you go back, how far do you have to go back in time? Not that many decades, right? Mm-hmm. When plastics just were we're not produced with the crazy abundance that they are now.
Yeah. And production is set to increase like fairly dramatically. That's the plan. So it's like, okay, well, obviously those two things just don't compute, right? Like if it's become a problem that plastic is everywhere, like literally in cells and everything, then obviously we have to reduce the amount of plastic that's put in the environment. But the industry is actually, as they're supposedly working on this, treaty and, of course, as they want it, voluntary codes of conduct, which is a way to forestall actual meaningful change. Cynically, but probably accurately. Then,
what is the relationship between cynicism and accuracy when it comes to assessing international politics and economics? Anyways, okay. Should we move on?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
JJ, I'm a staff at the library.
So when I say, what does sustainability mean to you? What pops into your mind?
For me, sustainability is having the integrity to hold up to the mistakes. Mistakes I'm referring to corporations. The government should enforce corporations who violate and pollute our environment. That's responsibility. That's holding up. That's
really well said. Yeah, absolutely. We have governments who need to, if I hear what you're saying we have governments who should be holding polluters responsible for the damage that they are creating to the environment. We have a lot of corporations who advantage themselves, gain profit, and through those profit-seeking enterprises, damage the environment. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. I mean, look at the farming issues in India, Monsanto, and other companies. What are they doing? What are they doing to us? The fact that, countries like Japan and Mexico were able to say no and drive Monsanto GMO out of their own country. Why is Canada not doing anything about that. And then what about appeal? The chemical that they are using for the vegetables. How come we are not hearing about it as Canadians? I'm very concerned.
Yeah. I think you're right to raise this as an issue because there's so much that goes on between big corporations, whether they're pharmaceuticals or agricultural corporations or mining corporations, and governments. That we really do need to be asking some of these hard questions. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the one you have all your notes on, right? Pull them out, Greg. Start talking.
How many hours do we have?
So for those listeners who do not know, Greg teaches a third-year course in the criminology department on
white collar and corporate crime.
There we go.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's key to sustainability is corporate capitalism, corporations, corporate domination.
And isn't one of the
JJ
things
eloquently
that,
talked about.
Yeah, exactly, right? Eloquently and passionately. I love how much you can hear there, how much he cares about these issues.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is like one of the things that you talk about in that class that you teach is, just looking at the amount of harm, damage, and death and destruction that is not criminalized, right? But is in fact kind of accepted as part of doing business.
Yeah.
Right. It's kind of collateral damage, right? And this is the intersection with the economy, right? With political economy, if we want to call it that if you look at the amount of harm from corporate crime, or even crime is problematic, because like you say, a lot of the harm
It's not actually criminalized, right? Yeah.
Most of it is not treated as crime, and that's that question of why, right? Why is a mom who steals, some formula to feed her kid, right? If she does that, that's a crime.
Yeah.
That's theft under $5,000, but CEO maybe makes a decision that a company is going to dump its toxic waste in a town's water supply or something. That's probably not going to get treated as a crime, even though maybe you get thousands of excess cancers, right? This is something we talked about with Philip, right? This idea of what is violent crime. So, and I think you're right that's because I don't know if we've decided as a society, but.
Whoa, is the law a consensus?
Oh, no.
Consensus versus conflict. Students.
First year intro crim right here.
Just talking to them the other week, yeah.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
How about conflict?
I don't think we have, but the people who control society have decided that, there's this acceptable amount of, one way to think about it is collateral damage. There's an acceptable amount of workplace injury. Why is that? Is there an acceptable amount of workplace death? We don't have an acceptable amount of illness, right?
Yeah.
But, the deaths that result from pollution, from unsafe workplaces and so on, significantly exceed all the deaths from all the serial killers and all the street crime and everything put together, in which, to take a dig at my own field, that criminology, our own field, that criminology is so focused on.
Mainstream criminology.
Mainstream criminology.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's my rant.
Yeah. There's like the farm workers, right? Like all the cases of cancer that are being linked to farm workers being so close to the application of these pesticides in these fields, right? But and so Monsanto, who JJ mentions, profiting massively off of this whole regime of food production, right? And I think this is something that all our listeners are going to be clued into is what happens when we have turned our food systems over to profit-seeking enterprises. I mean, it's that's a whole other, rant. But
of which there are, again, another aspect is just the sheer concentration. And food is, I mean, it's increasingly across multiple sectors, across the economy in general. But food, there's a handful of corporations that control, most of international food production. And you get this illusion, right? You go into the supermarket.
So many choices.
There's all these
so many
brands, right? But they all come down to like 5 companies.
Yeah. And even like different grocery stores, they're all owned, like a lot of the different grocery stores are owned by the same conglomerate.
Which has become a bit of an issue in the media consciousness, right? Around inflation, there's now a campaign to boycott Loblaws. But around price gouging, right?
It's like, did I tell you guys how when I was on holiday in Ireland visiting a friend in Galway, we took a day trip over to the Aran Islands.
Oh, nice.
And spent a day on Inishmore, the largest of the Aran Islands here. It was a beautiful, amazing, wonderful, fabulous trip. And we rented bikes. And when you look on the Google Maps, there's like 4 different bike rental places on Inishmore. And so you get off, it's like foot passenger only ferry. Like there's no car ferry over there.
Nice.
So it's like very cool. And so you think, oh, there's 4 different bike shops. And then you get there and you find out that they're all actually owned by the same guy, right? So it's got a complete monopoly. And so the
$500 an hour.
Yeah, more or less. I mean, so I feel like that's a little bit like this illusion of of choice when it comes to which of these corporate grocery stores are we going to shop at.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Onwards.
And then, so I'm going to stop. All right. So I will ask you to introduce yourself, your name and affiliation with KPU.
I'm David Burns, Associate Vice President, Academic.
Fabulous. And what does sustainability mean to you?
I think sustainability is learning to be more conscious and thoughtful about the ways in which we impact the world around us in all kinds of ways, both in terms of ethics and social justice and in terms of the environment, where we think more about how each step we take and each decision we make can impact others and future generations.
That's lovely. And I really like how you bring in both social justice and the environment. Can you talk just a little bit more about how those two intersect?
The state of the natural environment obviously impacts how we can support our communities and ourselves. And if you already have people who are unequally treated or left at the margins of those societies, the fact that those societies themselves become less sustainable makes those inequalities even worse. And of course, the things that allow us to be good in both of those areas, either more just to the people around us or to the world around us in natural terms, those things are often the same. Understanding your impact, being humble about who you are and the place that you occupy, understanding the ways that your thinking might lean in one direction or another to the exclusion of someone else's perspective. All these kinds of critical awareness, I think, are shared between those kinds of justice.
That's marvelous. Thank you so much. All right. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
This feels like one of those post-game shows, like on hockey. Like, all right, man, we just put some pucks on the net. We took it one shift at a time. And, you just got to want it more, really. Just got to want it more.
Yeah. You got to keep your stick on the ice and,
Or no, keep your head up when you're crossing the red line. Never have your head down crossing the red line. This is important.
David Burns, what a guy.
Burns.
He is very eloquent. Every time I hear that guy speak, if it's like introducing, some introduce the speakers at the event that our friends in sociology organized about Indigenous peoples and lands and borders and whatnot. And he welcomed, on behalf of the university. Pretty sure it was. I'm not making this up, am I?
Could have all been a dream.
He for a few things.
He gives like the welcoming address at some of these things.
Yes.
He's always very well spoken.
That's why he's paid the big bucks. Yeah,
that's right.
No.
That's right.
No, he's very eloquent and funny.
Yes.
Yes, got it all. No, it was very well put.
It was.
Do we want to say more? Did that say it? Like that intersection again between the different justice.
Yeah. In consciousness, right? He's also like talking about reflexive awareness of where we are individually located on these intersecting scales of justice.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Name and your affiliation with KPU.
Awesome. My name's Alexandra Taylor, and I am working with the Campus and Community Planning Department, and I am currently working as project support.
Okay, wow, this is great. We are glad to have you here. So the question, not too big of a question, just a tiny little question. What does sustainability mean to you?
Wow, this is a tough one for me to answer because my department is actually currently working on KPU's official definition of sustainability. So I need to be careful here. But I'm going to go for my personal view of what does sustainability mean to me. And I think sustainability means to me that all of us as people and our environment are able to succeed in life and achieve the things that we want to achieve in an equal and fair way.
That is a very holistic and an all-encompassing definition of sustainability. I really appreciate that. Can I ask you to unpack that just a tiny bit more? So what kinds of things are important for us to think about so that that vision can be realized?
I think it's really important for us to recognize that, especially as KPU and other institutions start to just head on focus on sustainability, we need to make sure that we're not leaving anyone behind. So I'm personally super passionate about accessibility. And I really just want to make sure that as we focus and care about our environment and make these changes, that the changes that we are making are accessible to everyone.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to add to that? I think that's pretty comprehensive, but is there anything else you want to?
I can definitely do a plug for Sustainable KPU Instagram account, which is kind of like going to be like a one-stop shop of everything sustainable that's happening at KPU. Also, if you're interested in accessibility at KPU, check out KPU's accessibility plan that was just launched in just last year. So yeah, there's a lot of really exciting things happening.
That's great. Thank you so much.
It's like, get in there.
Yeah, that's the one. And I think actually.
All right.
Yeah. Cool to have Alexandra on, working on the actual official plan.
Yeah. That was like one of those things you just like, oh my goodness, here is someone who actually is working on the official definition of sustainability for KPU.
Yeah. Synchronicity.
Yeah, totally. Right time, right place, right person.
Yes.
So we've got, I think, about another 2.5 minutes of tape to roll. Should we just keep?
Let's keep it rolling.
Yeah.
The one thing I was going to say about that interview and the sustainability office is it is amazing how many things are going on at KPU because it's such a complex organization, right? Like there's so many moving parts. And so, just even going back to the KPU farm, right? Like the fact that there's a 20-acre farm on this, and then it backs onto this peat bog, right?
Yeah.
And it's like there's all this amazing work that's going on to research around the peat bog itself as a carbon sink, and then what they're doing on that farm in terms of not just like the program where students are working on the farm, but also there's like a learning garden there and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of cool. So anyway, so that's just one example of one of the cool things that's going on at KPU.
Yeah, and there's as part of the plan, there's that's pretty far reaching from what I understand in terms of buildings and transportation. And
I saw a great plan that was put forward by one of these offices about how to reshape the parking lot.
Yeah.
Right? So right now on the KPU main campus, now that we have the rapid bus stop, right? So I get transit to campus, and you get off the bus, the R6, the rapid bus, and then now you just have to walk through this parking lot, right? But there's someone in one of these offices has come up with a plan for how could we reshape this, basically the public presentation of KPU, so that when you get off the bus and you're walking to campus, you're not walking through a parking lot. Anyways, hopefully there's money to realize that at some point in time.
Yeah.
All right, let's just keep on hearing what we're going to hear.
Okay, so if we can just start by you giving me your name and your affiliation with KPU.
My name is Bernadine. I am a lab manager with the psychology department.
Okay, thank you. And what does sustainability mean to you?
This is a very deep question. How we can use less while doing more with what we have already.
Okay, how we can use less while doing more with what we have already. Okay. Can you give an example or how you understand that happening in a kind of like a everyday kind of way?
I think that the one that we most see is in our own pantries or in our own fridges. We buy so much food because we walk past whatever sort of fridge and see so much choices, right? And then we buy, and then we keep it in our fridge. And then 2 weeks later, oh, I had this in the fridge. Oh, but it's gone bad, right? I've thrown it away, right? So sometimes we don't need 3 boxes of veggies in the fridge. Just buy 1 box a week, right? Finish that, and then we don't overconsume too much, right? Yeah.
So to me, what comes to mind when you're giving this example is something about humility.
Yeah. It reminds me of a Chinese saying, so, your eyes are bigger than your stomach.
Yeah, I have heard that. So it's yes. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's being humility, understanding what you need, not what you want, right? And then I think that can help in a way of how much we take from the environment. Yeah.
Yeah, distinguishing between wants and needs.
I think that's a perennial problem, right? Because it's a hard line to cross. Because when do you see a want as a want and a need as a need? Yeah.
That's a great question. All right. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to the conclusion of our streeters.
Yes.
Yeah.
And thanks to them all. I thought they had some great,
some really
great
good points.
thoughts.
It is. I mean, when you think about them all together, it's like one of the things that comes out is how there's so many different ways of making sense and actualizing these concepts, right? I mean, so themes of social justice all the way through, right? Like everyone's touching on that, like and thinking about that social justice as an issue that's implicitly like it's just embroiled in the very notion of sustainability all the way through. But people make sense of that in slightly different ways, which is amazing.
Yes.
I love to see that diversity.
Yeah, and they focus on slightly different aspects. But you're right, in its totality, it's a pretty comprehensive, I think, take.
One of the things that came out of that last
Mark has more ideas.
The last interview was I wrote down degrowth.
Oh,
right?
okay. I couldn't see it.
Yeah, sorry. And my handwriting's pretty bad, but yeah, degrowth.
Yes.
Right? Like we need to think about what does it mean to live in a society where we don't have this imperative of continual expansion, right?
Right.
And there's this whole field of economists and social scientists who study and degrowth as a concept. And that's kind of what came to mind when I was re-listening to that last interview.
I was thinking actually along the same lines and about how we go about actually achieving sustainability, however we define it. There's a lot of emphasis, yes, on the social justice, yes, on reducing consumption. But of course, we live in an economy that depends on, as you guys know, this is kind of my bugaboo when we think about this stuff, is thinking about the causality of it. And we live in an economy that is dependent on growth. Right. So if we all just consume far less, the economy collapses. Like we go into a recession, probably a depression. So do you need a different economic system? I mean, right now, okay, not to go on too long, too far a tangent, but we need you need growth in a capitalist economy at about a micro level, kind of the level of the firm, because it's basically grow or die. Like if you don't grow, you're going to be outcompeted, you're going to be taken over, you're going to disappear. You need it at a kind of macro level because, well, I mean, I think there are things like declining rates of profit that push you into ever more areas of commodifying everything. But you also need to reinvest, right? Like you need to do something with that surplus that you're creating. So and once you have that kind of system, you have a system of exponential growth, which is what we have, which means you have a doubling time. Capitalism has grown at about 3% a year on average for like 200-300 years, right, globally. Which means that every 22 years or something like that, that's what the doubling time is with 3%. It doubles. So 22 years from now, the economy will be double its present size, the global economy. Or we will have had some kind of economic collapse. Or we'll have some kind of shift, radical shift. And my contentious, perhaps, thesis is that you can do things within capitalism, right? You can make it more sustainable. You can make it less harmful. You can create conservation incentives. There are some conservation incentives already there to reduce costs and so on. But the primary drive is growth. We have a system that's fundamentally based on enormous waste, right? And to get away from that, you need socialism, right? You need an alternative, which isn't necessarily degrowth. It's just you break out of that necessity of growth, right? So you could target growth and green energy, and you would degrow, the oil sands and the most harmful aspects. But can you do that, to kind of put out a big theme to think about as we wrap up? Can you do that under our present system? Or do we need a more radical change? Does sustainability...
the term itself, no.
Yeah, could it be meaningful in a sense where we have a shift to something different? Because it tends to get tied into sustainable development, which is tied into tweaking the current system to make it less harmful. But that's the question that I would put out there. Do we in fact need a different system altogether? What do you guys think?
Well, no, and that's one of the themes that I thought about as we were listening to the recordings, right? That removal of harm or eliminating harm. But again, if we go back to that reciprocity that Mark likes, thinking about more than that, right? Going beyond not harming and focusing on benefits to the environment and thinking about sustainability in a different way, right? Meaning not just proliferation of humans and economic growth in a healthy way, but thinking beyond that, right? How can we actually have a positive impact on the more than human world, right? And not just removing our negative impact.
Right. Yeah.
And the thing that came to my mind when Greg was setting this up in terms of micro level, macro level, doubling time, 22 years, et cetera, and then he gave 3 options, I think, in there. And one of the things that came to my mind is like it's in all likelihood going to be a mishmash of all of the above,
yeah.
right? Like the way that I see things going is the limits to this continual expansion are being reached. I mean, I guess like every generation feels like, oh my gosh, we are at the limits of growth already. But what I think will happen is there'll be a continual marginalization and extraction of value from more and more classes of people, right? So we'll see the rich getting richer and the poor getting poorer, including the middle classes. So there'll be this increasing squeeze on more people. So it will, potentially contribute to kind of a fracturing of societies even more than we have now. And hopefully, though, within that, there are grassroots movements that can try to enact change in whatever way makes sense to them. And also maybe we can get some change in political leadership. And, I think it's like the changes that are required are kind of so vast and complex that I'm really hesitant to say here is the one sure route to achieve the change, right? Like one of the things that in the climate change community, if there is one, they will talk about social transformation, right? And like, so what is necessary in order to deal with coming climatic changes in a fair and equitable way so that vulnerable populations are not, suffering inequitable harm. We need social transformations. And this is just looking at that who is vulnerable to climate change for what reasons and what kinds of changes are expected and what kind of changes are going to happen that we don't even know about because, increasingly we're going to have unanticipated events or surprises. And so so we have this notion of social transformation, which I think has to be understood at a kind of multi-scalar level. So changing, because your question, Greg, about changing the economy, it's like, wow, how do you actually do that? Like, even if we say, like this continual growth as a kind of like a baseline for that underwrites our current realities, if you say that needs to be addressed, how do you actually do that, right? And
we have to transcend the commodity form. That's all.
That's all. Wow.
No, you're
tomorrow,
right.
No problem.
But that is the challenge, right? Like, how do you do that? Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it has to be like multi-level, multi-scale, intersectional. But I think it also has to be, at some level, there has to be an underlying grand narrative. And there has to be like mass movements to enact the kind of change we need. Otherwise, I fear that we'll just see the kind of stuff you're talking about in terms of justice. You'll just see it get worse, right? And I think that the elites, if we want to call them that, they've already decided that we will be all right. We can adapt. So if it comes down to a choice between thinking of plastics, same with oil, like they're scheduling increased, they're planning for long-term increased oil production. And they're obviously like, we can deal with it. We can build our bunkers. We can build our safe zones. Like we can build our things. We'll be okay. There'll be all you guys out there baking, right? But in the trade-off, we'll be all right. So unless, the people who have their hands on the levers of society are kind of forced to make changes, I'm not sure that they will. I know that's kind of a negative take, but it's just how
negative
it
or
looks.
Realistic?
Yeah. I don't know. What do you think, Paula?
No, realistic.
Realistic.
But then that's kind of defeating for the masses, right? Like what do we do? As Mark said, I don't know, mass resistance to.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but then it ends up being kind of pockets of, I don't know.
So on this hopeful note, should we actually announce who we have in the room with us right now?
Right now.
I'm not sounding like much of
our leader, our champion. Yeah, I don't know.
So Greg, can I go ahead and say this?
Do it.
Yes.
Greg is an upcoming, soon-to-be champion for the UN Sustainable Development Goals at KPU.
Yes. No, I'm excited to take this on. So, these kind of questions of sustainability are what we'll be taking up. So we'll be taking this up in the podcast in various ways, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, and we'll be talking about them, I guess. And
will we?
Will we? I don't know. Should I not say that? I can cut this out.
Determine that now. Good. That's good. We've got a whole.
Now you put me on the spot.
Well, I like.
He has to have plans now. He's our champion.
What I wanted to see. So why I wanted to raise this now, right? And why I wanted to put you on the spot with this now is because you've got this analysis of the macro, right? Like the structural analysis.
Yeah.
And in which you say, look, we need, social change. We need to transform the political economy, right? And now here you are with newly appointed Sustainable Development Champion. How are you going to reconcile championing sustainable development goals at KPU with your grand vision of transforming the whole economy?
Good question.
It is a good question. Well, when I say we need profound change, if you want to put it that way, if I want to put it that way, I'm not saying that is unachievable, right? I'm not saying that everything you're saying about, as I said, like we need these multiple scales, need multiple areas of action to bring about real change. But I think there has to be that goal. I don't think it can be just, okay, we're going to just, I think you have to connect the local to the global, right? That translocal, that globalization, I think is a word people sometimes use. So it's kind of like, yes, you're working on this concrete local issue in the moment, but it's towards a bigger goal. And I also think, because I know this is, Paula criticizes me for this, for coming across.
Paula criticized Greg?
Criticizing?
Oh my
God.
I know that. It's hard to believe.
Shock of shocks. We're gonna have to put it.
But it's valid. Like her criticism, there's a validity, shall I say,
Thank
to
you.
her criticism.
think.
And it seems, in my opinion, it seems negative, right? It seems like there's this overwhelming task. How are we going to do it? You need this profound change. Well, I think you can do it, I would say dialectically, in that the criticism is we're trapped into kind of roles and structures, and the structures determine what we can and cannot do, but we can change those structures. It's just you have to be, the point I'm making is we tend to be so focused on, because of the society we live in, because of the political economy we live in, we tend to be so focused on the individual and what I can do. I need to make better choices in the marketplace. I need to consume less, blah, blah, blah. But I was just trying to point out that you abstract that away from the bigger system and it doesn't work, right? So it has to be connected to this bigger project. And the society makes the individual, but the individual makes society. And iteratively, that can move forward. So between those two interactions, something else can come out that is new, right? I mean, society has changed and changed. What's again, to go back to Mark, what's the quote? I think you said men, right? But men make history, but not under conditions of their own choosing. So you're embedded in that, but you can change it. But you can't change it by just fantasizing. Let's just pretend that, let's just will into existence a different
we need
world.
we need
Anyway.
we need to realize the actual conditions.
Concrete
like
material.
And proceed from there.
So all right, I'm down with that. I'm down with that. I think that's that speaks to the sociologist in me of understanding this relation between the individual and the structure as being recursively formed, and for sure.
Yeah, you're the sociologist. Why am I talking about this stuff?
No, I just want to get back to Paula's criticism of Greg. That's always kind of fun.
It's not really a criticism. I just want to acknowledge
It's just human. Right.
Acknowledge human agency and the desire too for students to have an impact and think about
which they can.
They can, right?
That's what I'm going to be all about.
But but it's important to think too beyond what, again, our individual actions, what we're doing, and think more about, localized actions, but also that kind of global network of localized actions, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
The bigger picture.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool. Was there
Should we
anything
leave?
else? Anything else you want to say?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I have one thing I want to say.
Okay.
This has
Okay.
been bugging me. So our regular listeners may know that the very first episode that we recorded,
Oh no, you're not going to.
I am.
No, no.
I'm going to
statistic,
correct
right?
it. I'm going to correct it. I threw out the figure of 85% of protein in none of it coming from country food, and that was just one of those things. I was like, in the moment, I just could not remember. It's actually 52%. So
Right.
so 52%
Serious discrepancy. there.
of the food, of the protein, 52% of the protein consumed in none of it comes from country food,
Well,
like
thank
hunted.
yes.
And there you
Yes,
go.
okay. And thank God you've finally stepped up, because I'm
Yeah.
sure people were like shaking their head. The
Yeah.
whole time they have not stopped
Yeah.
shaking their heads.
Or they've
And,
stopped
like,
listening.
They've stopped listening.
because
Probably.
they
Like,
just discredited
just
everything
shocked.
that you've
Yes.
said
Yeah,
the entire
that's
time.
You could have
in my defense, that episode at the time when we recorded it, that was just like a practice.
It
We're
was.
just like,
It was
Yeah.
supposed
and
to be a
then-
practice.
and then you
and
guys
then
were
Greg
like,
was
"No,
like,
let's
no,
do
we
this."
have to release it. That's
I
what
was like,
Greg said.
and I was against it, but you forced it anyways. All
We
good.
could have just edited. We should have
could
gone,
have.
and we could
Yeah,
have, you know,
dubbed it.
had you dub over, right?
Yeah.
Go like,
We
you
should
know.
have fixed
And
that.
the figure is 52%. Right. Anyway,
Which is still,
okay, well,
which
I'm
is still quite high.
Which
More
is
than
still
half.
high.
Yes.
It's still high, yes. Yeah. Okay. Any other errata, corrections, revisions? No, retractions?
Announcements.
We'd
Retractions.
like to retract our
Everything.
previous. Yes.
How many grains of salt do we have? Take them all? No, nothing here.
Okay. All right. Well, that was great, I think. Yeah, and thanks again to the people of
Yeah.
the ORS symposium, the people of KPU.
Yeah.
Good folks, right?
Community. Yeah.
So many good things happening.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.